people are the weakest link. This is what people say, and
That's what I've
I
heard.
don't like that. It's so negative. How can we approach someone? How can we change how we see this type of things, like communication, building programs involving more people, improving visibility, if we don't consider people as an opportunity and just try to isolate them, right? So, and this is something that I'm trying to kind of overcome. And it's not easy, but I hope that our community could do a lot of good things in relation to this topic, and we can really improve it. And this gatekeeping should stop, because this influences also how we see people who we want to involve into security related matters, right? So
Welcome to the Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host and AppSec enthusiast and growth manager at Escape, an API discovery and security platform. Today, I'm excited to have Alina Yakubenko on the show. Alina, Senior Application Security Engineer at Toast and former developer and QA engineer, is dedicated to empowering developers to integrate security into their everyday practices. She's very passionate about building a culture of security awareness. She works to ensure that security is a core component of development processes, helping teams build safer, more resilient applications. In this episode, we dive into a thought-provoking question. Is it truly realistic to see everyone as the greatest ally in security? We also explore the critical role of making security champions self-sufficient, especially in rapidly scaling organizations. If you're a strong advocate for security champion programs and want to learn how to scale them effectively, this episode is for you. Dive right in! Hi, Alina. I'm super excited to have you on a podcast with me today. So it's actually one of the rare guests that I've probably met in person first, and then we recorded the podcast, and not like the other way around. So it was super nice to meet you at the Samgrad party first, and I saw like how actually passionate you were about security, how passionate you were about like security champions. Like you were super big advocate, for Dustin, and I think you watched like his podcast episode. I'm not sure, but yeah, you were very, very passionate about this topic. So I'm actually curious to know your opinion as well. About what you think about in general security champions program, and I also saw like you were a little bit about it, and that you actually need to not only have maybe developers to have to be your security champions, but have everyone, to see everyone as your greatest ally in security. Why do you think this?
yeah, thank you, Alexandra, for having me. I'm really excited. Just wanted to say that I'm representing myself. Everything that I'm sharing is just my opinions, something that I've learned over almost 2 decades working in tech in different areas. So yeah, I'm not representing anyone or anything. This is I'm not really a public person, right? But I came to the point where we have to do something as a community. And this is why I share. This is why I meet with people. And I just share my views, my understanding, how I see things. Of course, my way is not like, this doesn't mean that it will work for everyone. But without sharing, it's difficult to learn. And I know that in our industry, it's still an issue for some companies, some people. They don't want to share too much, and it's understandable,
Sometimes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's something that is natural for security professionals to be that way. But we ended up having a lot of knowledge just hidden somewhere, and people have to reinvent the same stuff. And what I've learned after talking to people is that people try some stuff, and if it doesn't work, they just give up. And they give up because they don't know how it could be done differently. So this is one of the reasons why I'm here. And I really enjoyed our conversation during the RSA week. it was that conversation was inspired, and I just wanted to continue doing that and be more open about this
Proactive.
stuff. And productivity, it's a good thing that you just mentioned that, because what we're trying to do here is to solve potential issues, right? Not just reacting. And security is about reacting, a lot of it,
Mm,
just about
mm.
reactive work. And the main reason for that is that security doesn't scale well, in my opinion, right? Because how I see it's usually done is there's some small group of people that are focused on security related activities, and they try to react to everything and handle everything and fix issues. And it's just a lot of stress working like this. But the most important part, it doesn't give us visibility, right? So we can do anything. We can work with tools, we can create processes, but if we don't have visibility, it doesn't make much sense. So there is a way to
Mm.
kind of improve this scalability, visibility, and there is a way to make it measurable. So this is important part, because working in security, people often, they have to be a salesman, right? They have to come up with something and they have to get
Yep.
people on their side. But how to do that if you don't have anything you can use as metrics, right? So metrics are important to make sure that you get people on your side. Everyone wants something, right? Everyone needs something. Um, People who work as engineers, they want something for themselves. Managers might want something different. So we used to think about security as a combination of three different things, main components like tools, processes, people. But due to different reasons, companies have to focus on something like tools first, right? We have to have
It's
tools.
easier.
It's
It's
easier, and
easier.
yeah, and you have budget for that. You can have a
Mm,
group of people who could work with the tool.
mm.
They could integrate it. They could, collect data from that tool. We can create processes, right? Processes are important for different reasons, and it's also something that could be easily done by the security team, right? So they know how things should work, how to secure stuff. But the main component is people. Is It's
Mm.
something difficult to maintain, how to build a program around, so it includes people and make people like the main part in that program. That's difficult because people are difficult, right? And we, especially from security engineer's perspective and just software engineer, sometimes we want to work with people. We would focus on tools and coding,
Yeah, more
and things.
controversial kind
Right.
of. Yeah.
So I understand why it's difficult, but I also, what I've learned over almost 2 decades working with different people, different roles, like I was working in QA for a long time, and I was a software engineer before I switched to security.
Mm.
And this is relevant to everything we do, right? So we have to figure out how to work with people. We have to figure out how to make them our allies, right? Basically, that's the
Mm.
key. This is key part to like success, in my view, because only people could give us visibility, right? So it doesn't matter how many cool tools I have. It doesn't matter how great my processes are, and it doesn't matter if I don't have anyone to go to rely on visibility in that, and it's relevant to a lot of companies from large to small, because and the smaller companies might be feel easier, but
It,
in larger companies it's not as easy to have the whole picture of everything,
mm.
how it's done. So
That's kind of the reason why it's I totally, agree with you with what you mentioned, like in the beginning, that the sales skill, like you have to sell a little bit within the company. That actually sales skills, in a sense, are super important, for security engineers, because and not in a sales skill in a bad way, where you just have to be like a business development rep and go and try to get people board, but more creating relationships with them and kind of try to understand their pain point, try to kind of, once you understand this pain point, how can you solve their problem for them? And the problems, of, let's say someone from the C level is going to be different from developers. So kind of, yeah, you have to on one side think numbers and dollars and quantifiable risk. On another side, you have to think, okay, how can I make my life a bit easier and less frustrating and less just technically how you can also help them. Because you mentioned you also did tutorials, right? So do you do also film tutorials for developers to kind of proactively educate them on security?
Well, that's the idea. Like, this is what I want to do more. Like the whole idea of getting something for the community, giving people something. That was the idea behind like creating tutorials on different topics, because it's not obvious to people. Not everyone is interested in security, and this is something that I've talked to different people, and this is what some people share, is that they they take this shift left too seriously, right? And they want to go all in with that, and they try to involve everyone into security. But this is just not how it works. As you said, the relationship. It's all about relationship. You used the right word here. We have to build that relationship with people, and not just to have them on our side, but to make it efficient, right? So you cannot just go somewhere asking like, okay, do you want to be security? This is so cool. You can do this cool stuff and this type of cool stuff.
Yeah,
And they will, okay, yeah, I will do it, and that's it.
that's
This
a
is how
dream
it
world.
this is how it usually happens when it's not official, when it's not a real thing, with rules, with requirements, with benefits, metrics, and things like that. So volunteering part is, of course, it's the main part. And this is why I was like this before. I was trying to get everyone on board, get everyone interested. I mean, this is how it usually works. Been in leadership roles like team lead and management roles before. So what I try to do, not to make people do something, but to make them want to do something, because this is the only way. You cannot just force something on people, right? They will just leave if they're not.
Or procrastinate, usually it's
Yeah,
that.
so in any case, it just won't work. So my approach was to try and make them want to do stuff. This is why motivation is a good thing to start with, right? What someone might need, right? So different group of people, different groups of people, they need different stuff. Managers want something, developers something else. And I try to do it like this, trying to get everyone interested in security.
What
And
changed in your
I
experience?
just realized that it's impossible. I mean, I might be an optimistic and positive person, and I might be excited about things, but it doesn't mean that everyone is excited about the same, right? So this is why I think it's unfair to expect all software engineers to be interested in security, everyone be interested in security, because it's not how it works. And people, if we're talking about companies, like how they do stuff, they hire people for some specific role, and you cannot expect software engineer to be passionate about security stuff, right? Because they weren't hired for that. They were hired as software engineers, so they have to do their work. So then I really focused on trying to make it easier for software engineers. So we still need people who are interested. We can use their help, but we don't have to push this on everyone, right? So this is why security champion programs, I think it's a good way to scale. It's a good way to improve visibility, because you can find that volunteer, one person on a team or across several teams. I know it depends on the company and how many people you have interested in security,
Yeah.
and ask them to help you with that, right? And you can then figure out what they want, what they're interested in. Some people they might be interested in training, build skills, and maybe eventually transition to security. And some
I mean,
people,
you never.
yeah, and exactly. So, and this is how I got into this. I started doing stuff because I saw some gaps, and I figured, okay, this should be resolved, and it must be resolved, right? It's just unsafe. And I started thinking how to make it more efficient, how to get more people into this so they would do something like this and try to protect what they're working on.
Yeah.
And this is how I got lured in to security, because I kind of started doing it, and then I figured that this is cool. This is what I want to do. This is where I can make the most influence, right? And bring the best, I don't know, results. When I was just software engineer, it wasn't fulfilling for me. I know it's just me.
Okay.
For a lot of people, this is what they want to do, and they're happy about this. To me, having that limited kind of area of responsibility that I can influence in, that wasn't enough. And I found myself basically in security because I have larger area of
Okay.
responsibility, more things I can improve, and so, but it's just me. It's my personal experience. But what I'm saying is, people need to try stuff before they know if they want to do it or not. Sometimes um it's it's not easy to figure out.
It's not easy. It's not easy to figure out, and I think it depends also on the personality, like whether you are more specialist or generalist in a sense as well. I think on my side, I'm definitely more generalist. I just love to learn a little bit about different kind of things. Like it's always there's something that it just makes me super curious, and I want to dig into that. And yeah, that's another problem, and it never stops. But this, having this learning part is something that motivates me personally. As I understood, what motivates you is being able to project the influence on other people and actually try to inspire them to be the better version of themselves, in a sense, right?
In a sense, right? But and we need people for this. We need this relationship with as many people we can build a relationship. I'm I understand that it's difficult. I cannot make everyone like me, right? And I've never tried to do that, because it's just a
It's
waste of
impossible.
time and
Yeah.
resources. So I find my people, and I try to get them, like, at least see what we are building, what we're working on, what ideas I might have, and see if they're kind of respond to that. So if they respond, it's fine. Awesome. We already might have something ready for them. So this is what I hear from people in different companies. This is what's lacking, right? Being able to approach someone and have something ready for them to jump on, because this is what I mentioned before. You can get someone excited, but this excitement, it passes pretty quickly, right? So if you don't have anything to keep people engaged with,
Engaged.
and kind of keep their interest, it just yeah, it just fades away. So this is what I learned working with people in absolutely different roles, right? So this is what happens pretty often. Excitement, it's not for long, but it's good enough to proceed and give people more and more and more of what they want. So it's important to figure out what they want. So yeah, we need to look for those people who we can get interested in this, right? So this is tough for me because I keep hearing this for years, insecurity only. But when I was working in QA, when I was working as software engineering, so people are the weakest link. This is what people
Yeah,
say, and
that's what I've
I
heard.
don't like that. It's so negative. How can we approach
Mm.
someone? How can we change how we see this type of things like communication, building programs involving more people, improving visibility, if we don't consider people as an opportunity and just try to, I don't know, isolate them, right? Because
Mm.
when I was working as QA engineer, okay, I knew that users, they could do a lot of stuff, and it's hard to predict what they can do with the product,
Yeah.
when they use it. And this is was a like huge part of my work, just to try and predict what they would do, those users. It's basically the same thing but from a different perspective, and I would rather have them not touch some things, because I
Okay.
so and
Because
yeah,
it would break.
it's a different perspective, right?
Mm.
But of course, GA experience helped me to look for that when I was a developer. So
Mm.
I tried to prevent things like that. But that's not the point. The point is that users were always, like, people overall, are perceived as something, like we
Mm.
just rather isolate them. We create products for them, right? We have them involved. We want more people using the products, but we
Mm.
still kind of have this mindset of removing them from the processes, from the scene, or treating them like they're, I don't know, children that
Yeah.
just break stuff and do, like, do harm. So, and this is something that I'm trying to kind of overcome, um, and it's not easy, but I hope that our community could do a lot of good things in relation to this topic, and we
Mm.
can really improve it. And this gatekeeping should stop, because
Yeah.
this influences also how we see people who we want to involve into security related matters, right? So, for example, if you have a volunteer who wants to participate in your security champion program, right? Join it. And that person, they might not know much about security, right? But they're eager
Mm.
to learn. How we greet them make difference, right? If we treat them and greet them as someone who doesn't know anything and could be just there in case we need them, it's one thing, and it's not very useful. But if we greet them, like, with open arms and saying, like, we are here for
Mm.
you, we can make your life more interesting,
Easy.
or life of your peer software engineers or anyone else more easier, because they don't have to deal with this stuff. It's another thing. If we can provide them with what they need, could be very useful to everyone, basically. Companies could benefit this, people could benefit this.
And what, for example, if you think about like actionable, strategies on how to instance, what actually would you try to provide? Because, for example, I think you mentioned to me you were also like involved in API security. So let's say there is a project going on within your project going on. There is someone who actually a developer who is building a new API, but he's also passionate about security, right? And he comes to you and say, actually, Alina, how can, like, I actually want to know more about how can I build this new API securely. I'm really enthusiastic about that. How can you help me? What would you advise them to do?
What I would do is have already list of resources that they can use, right? So you have to have something ready. Sometimes some things might not be covered, and you have time to get to that. But this is something that needs to be taken seriously, right? If you have a request and you cannot fulfill that request, you have to jump on it and make sure that that person is satisfied. Because what happens if they see that you're not serious about that, they will not come to you again.
Mm.
And this is why I try to think about AppSec, or I don't know, product security or security overall,
Mm.
as a service department, basically support
Okay.
support department to the
Business
whole
sense.
company,
Yeah.
right? And our company, if I look at this way, the whole company is my customer, right? The
Mm-hmm.
first customer. And if I'm customer oriented, I have to make sure that my direct customer is happy. They have all they want, all they need to do their work, right? So that's the approach that I kind of try to keep in my head when I do stuff, when I talk to different people as well, like when I share my experience. And this is something that what I've been doing, like, for, I don't know, as I said, for almost 20 years,
The,
because
yeah.
it's the same thing, right? When you're a QA engineer, um, you have a different set of customers directly, not just the customers of your product, but your direct customers, right? You, as a QA,
Mm.
you work with software engineers, with product managers, right? And you have to
Yeah.
work with them closely and, give them what they want. When you're a software engineer, right? Your customers, basically the users of the product, right? So there is always a direct customer, and we have to figure out how to be ready for their request. Or if we are not ready, they need to know that we are serious and we will help them. So in security as well, if we have someone interested and we don't have anything ready,
Mm.
it's a good sign that we probably need to work on that, right? So
Mm.
having resources, policies, guidelines, I don't know, what have you. I had to even use some open source materials, right? And the communities like WASP and others are really helpful. Like SafeCode has a lot of useful materials people like who work in security could use to, I don't know, to build that baseline for everyone. It's interesting, but those requests should be taken seriously, in my opinion.
And how often should you update, for example, this library of resources? Because, for example, let's say initially you might come say, into a new company and you see maybe it's a complete mess. I don't know, there are not so many helpful resources. And then maybe you have something, I don't know, on the cloud security, on application security in a general sense, maybe just adapted, to, let's say, your specific development framework within the company, but it changes, so often. Like now, AI security, LLM security, and you still have to kind of educate people on that, because if you, let's say, start building new algorithm or like a product within a product, how do you make sure that there is no, let's say, poisoning attacks or things like that?
It's a good question. This is why we'll still have to react on stuff, right? Some things cannot be predicted very well, and technology changes really fast. We have priorities, right? We can prioritize stuff, and if something is more urgent, like, for example, you mentioned, from what I see, people didn't look at it as something really important at the beginning, right?
Mm.
Because it didn't seem like it's something that is going to be there for a long time in this form. And it didn't seem to some people this is something worth doing
Mm.
and focusing your effort on, because, well, it could just, fade away as it was without technologies. It's just if you have an urgent need to do something, and cover your employees because there is a real risk and real threat there, you do that. So you have, this is why we'll have to react to some stuff. And this is why I think it's important to try and kind of prevent as much as possible, right? To be proactive as much as possible, because we will still have things like this that we will have to react to. Create policies, guidelines, and all the documentation, work with people to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And security champions could help with that as well. For example, if you have a working security champion program, like real one with all the components like requirements and things like that, you will have people who could help you implement those new, I don't know, guidelines if you create some, right? So if you don't have anyone in engineering, how can you make sure that those policies, guidelines are followed? Can we make sure that no one is breaking something, right? Because they don't know how to deal with some specific potential issues, right? How to prevent things in their code or do other stuff. So having security champions could help with that as well. This is my bigger hope, maybe dream, that security champion programs will become something common, and that they become like self-efficient entities, companies, right? So scalable and self-sufficient, I would say. So it wouldn't require as much effort and time from the security teams, but people on the security champion programs will be able to run that program and improve it and do the majority of the work.
But how realistic do you think is it that it is actually a self-sustained entity?
So yeah, I'm really optimistic person, and it doesn't always serve me well. But okay. So how I see this could be done, right? Theoretically, and after talking to a lot of people, I think it could work. But this is not like a silver bullet. It doesn't mean that what works for one person would work for another. It doesn't mean that
Yeah,
what
sure.
work for one company will work for another, right? So it's like you're reading a book, I don't know, even technical book or book on management. You don't want to apply it right away directly to the processes of your company, right? Because this will more likely going to fail because yeah.
Depends on the size of the company. I actually always try to apply immediately because then I know if I'm just like if I'm gonna go back on it in some months, I'm going to maybe forget exact like the impact I can make potentially. But indeed, if you're 1,000 people, you can't. Like if you're 100 or 20, you can.
Yeah, I
If you're
agree that
1,000,
there could be room for experiment, right? And by applying directly, what I mean is that the same approach that is described in the book might not work for the company because the company is different, the structure is different, the people are like focused on different things. Startups, they tend to be more free realms,
yeah,
free spirit
true.
people there,
Yeah.
less structure. But when you try something, right, and it doesn't work, you don't give up. You try something else, right? If something doesn't work, you say, okay, that doesn't work here, or was what we have. What else can we try? And this is what could help find something that works for you, for your company, for yourself, for people you work with. But my approach would be having a clear structure, because I've seen how it works when there is no structure, where when it works like we mentioned before, like volunteer based, people are get excited, the group of people is pretty small, and everyone is doing something, learning, but there is no formal approach to that. It can work to some extent, right? But if you
Mhm.
want to scale, if you want to grow, there should be some structure, right? So what I would do, I would think what groups of people I need to get involved and what type of support I need and what each group of people needs to support us. And what I've seen before, if you try to push something from the bottom, will probably not work. So you have to kind of predict what can happen, kind of threat model the whole process of creating.
So
You
you
can
can
threat
pre-apply
model
yours. Yeah,
everything.
for
Yeah,
training.
it's
Yeah,
possible to,
you can.
and
You
and
can.
it's a good idea to do that, right? So you try to figure out what can go wrong with all this, what we have, right, and try to fix that and mitigate some stuff. For example, if you have a group of volunteers who want to do things, and even if you have them like informal, I don't know, like in a channel somewhere
Mm.
when you can communicate with them, they have to be able to do this work, right? But how can they do this work if they don't have their manager's approval, or they cannot squeeze security work into their day-to-day activities,
Normal,
right?
yeah.
So it will be difficult. So I think it's important to figure out how to influence different groups of people, right? And give them what they want and what they need. For example, for your volunteers, they might want some different things, right? You can survey them. What I would do, I would ask them what they're interested in. If they're interested in training, I would try to provide them with training. If they want to
Mm.
be that go-to person on their team with security knowledge, and that's important to a lot of people. Some people want to be heard, some people want to be able to use this for their career growth, you know,
Mm.
even, you know, changing jobs in the future. If you're a security
Yeah,
champion, it might be
security. Yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah.
Some people want some official titles, right? And that is something that could be done. So, as part of the official program, you could consider even that, right? How can people show that they in this role, right? So that could be helpful. But you have to get your managers on your side as well, to make sure that management supports people working as security champions, that they provide them with resources, you know, and allow them to spend part of their, you know, workday doing
Mm.
that. So being a volunteer doesn't mean that they have to do it in their spare time. It still should be part of
Yeah.
their work. So you have to figure out what managers could want or need, and this is where metrics come to play. And it's a huge motivator, and most importantly, this is how you can measure the success of the program, right? So what I would do, I would figure out what type of metrics we can use, right? It could be something related to tools they're using, or something else, participation in some events,
Mm.
sharing, anything, right? So you can create some metrics for that, and then track the progress of the program. You have to have your people who volunteer motivated as well, and list everything, right? So the ideas, share with them, be open, transparent. So I would do that. I always try to be transparent with people I work with, because it's important. They cannot trust you if you're hiding something, or, you know, you're
Yeah.
unpredictable. And even if something doesn't work, I usually just say, okay, this is my fault. That didn't work. This is how I
Yeah.
try to fix it, right? So I'm not sure how well it will work, but this is, you know, I think for now at least, I couldn't find a better way of doing that. right? So this would work fine, and this level of transparency served me well till now.
And what do you think about involving them into the, let's say, community? Because, for example, in the company where I work, we have some software developers, and especially like one infrastructure engineer. He's very passionate about security, and he always goes to local OWASP meetups, and he like even proposes his own workshops there. And it's, I mean, for him, it's more organically, but sometimes let's say actually like being involving someone in an external community can also be a good motivator, I would say, if they want to showcase more their work, or if that's something that motivates them. What do you think it's impactful?
I think the communities could help a lot. And what I've learned from my experience, again, that if I wanted to learn something about some security topics, right, I would I would have to search for something. But how can you search for something if you don't know it exists, right? So this is why sharing is key, because to share some specific, I don't know, techniques, right, on doing something, but just to show people that some things exist, and then they could
Mhm.
do deeper research and look, more for that.
Yeah.
So when I started, I was looking for some people who work in security and share some stuff, and then I started from there. I learned about OWASP, other communities, like, and resources that I could use, safe code as well, things like that. And LinkedIn provided a lot of resources as well, because
Mhm.
there are people, right, and you can learn from
Yeah.
people, and this is something that we can use more, like sharing knowledge, recording podcasts,
Yes.
having a video
Yeah.
blogs on some topics, because this is how it can grow. But what I learned, and this was difficult for me, and this is something that I would want us to improve as a community, of course, is having that one place to go. And this the same with software engineers, right? And I've been software engineer, and I didn't want to use different tools, right? I didn't want
Mhm.
to, I couldn't remember, and I had so much work to do and focus on my tasks that I could forget about things, that I need
Mhm.
to go to some tool and look for something there. And it wasn't pleasant. As a security engineer, I understand this. I understand that for people, and I work with software engineers, I know it's difficult for them. Not because it's difficult to do, but because they're
Mhm.
busy with some other stuff, right? So they have no time to keep everything in mind, right? They focus on
Mhm.
their work. And this is why it's important to keep reminding people about stuff, like sharing with them constantly on some topics. And communities could be a good thing here, because if we create something, a one place that people know that if you're interested in security, any
Mhm.
topic in security, you go there, and that's it. And that place, one place, collects most of the knowledge, because people bring that knowledge with them, right? And they could have one place they could communicate. There are so many platforms for that, and they could share knowledge, because that was difficult for me to gather all the pieces of information, and
Yeah.
not just doing research. Research is relatively easy to do if you know what to look for, right? But how
Yeah.
can you make sure that you know what to look for, right? Something could be there, something cool, something useful, and you just don't know that it exists. So this is why communities could help. And it's, I don't know, it's, again, motivation is important. For example, how can you make sure that people are actually doing something and learning? You cannot go with a stick after everyone, and saying, like, you need to do that,
Mm.
you didn't do that. I mean, accountability is important. If people know what's expected, then you can go and ask them if they
Yeah.
did it or
Yeah.
not. Or I don't know. I don't want to be too sound too harsh here, but what I've
Like
learned is,
sometimes it is necessary.
yeah, but what I've learned, it's more positive experience if you just give people an opportunity and you kind of encourage them to just to do some work. This is why gamification could help here as well, and we can include gamification piece into every process we have, and having people even in security champion programs, they could help to have this gamification piece as well, something that we could have people to gather around and compete maybe and see some result of their work, not just they're doing task and they're
And they're done. Yeah.
and they're done and no one knows what they did, but they could report on
Mm.
some task, they could gain some, I don't know, points for what they do and kind of progress and maybe compete with each other. And this is something that can help to grow not only like programs and that involve people but communities as well. I'm not sure yet how to implement this, to be honest. It's just an idea that it's good to have one place that we can go to and find all the help, right? Because we want to be helpful. It's important to support each other because this knowledge could help to secure the whole, I don't know, improve the security overall. Because what we see is we have to catch up constantly. It's reactive in nature. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough people who could help us with stuff. And like bad guys are there. They have
Yeah.
sometimes they have more resources, and this is why we need to grow the community, in
Mm.
my opinion.
Yeah. I think there are a little bit of sprawl of resources and sometimes communities too. Like you have, I don't know, at least I see on my side, like I follow, let's say, 10 security newsletters. I'm in 5 different security communities. And sometimes I don't know what to, like, first, I don't have time to follow on everything. And sometimes you don't really, it's just so much information and you don't know what sometimes to prioritize and what can be like the most helpful for you. So for me, for example, like OWASP community, I'm completely lost. Like it's just so many information. That's why like I wanted to ask you, for example, about like Let's Talk Software Security Group, because I've attended one of the calls, and I think it's a little bit more like at least around one topic. It's more straight to the point, and personally, I find that more useful. At least I don't get lost. But like, what do you think? Is there maybe one community that you really?
So I also attend different, OWASP meetups and things like that. I really like this Let's Talk Software Security because, uh, as you said, like one topic, and everyone would discuss that topic. Everyone would share
Mm.
their experience on that topic. And sometimes it feels like a therapy group, like people from the industry come and just discuss the painful topics. And I learn a lot from events like this because of that knowledge. And this is why I think that having one place to go could be very helpful, right? We'll still have a lot of communities, a lot of different people who want to share their knowledge separately. But what we can do, you're right? We have WASP, we have different communities, we have different meetups. If you go to meetup on a WASP,
Yeah.
you will see there are a lot of events like across the world, right?
Oh
So
yeah, for sure. For
there
sure.
is there is a lot of knowledge on different security topics. What I'm thinking, it would be cool to create one community, and all those people might be interested in participating in this community as well. And it's not easy to do. I'm trying to boil the ocean. Big ideas could be broken down into smaller, and we could implement this step by step. We just need to have
Mm.
people on our side who could help us with this. So not at once, not overnight,
No, for
not
sure not.
even in a year,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's a long in the long run. It could help to have something like this. So we're not restricting people from running their own, media channels, and like it's just the idea of collecting all the knowledge possible, right? Of course, it will not be all the
Mm.
knowledge, but if people want to participate, they can share, and this community can grow and scale over time.
And there's one question I always ask also at the end of the podcast. If there would be a book that you could recommend to the young listeners to learn more about security, what would it be?
That's a tough question because I have a bunch of books on security on different topics. I should have prepared better for this.
But that's the
Uh,
fun part.
that's the fun part.
What is your favorite?
So what I would recommend, maybe reading some non-fictional or some research books like Sandworm or The Cuckoo's Egg is a good one,
Mhm.
because because this is what I tell people when they ask me about. I'm interested in security. What should I do?
Mm.
Where should I start? And what tell to people, just to go and research some basics, like
Mm.
some basic security stuff, maybe some training, like free training. I
Mhm.
think it's good to start with free stuff, and then see what you like doing. Are you interested
Okay.
more in testing? That would be one set of resources. If you're interested, if you're a developer, for example, for software engineers, it's a natural path in security to go and do
Mhm.
AppSec stuff and things like that. So just to get inspired, and just to get some understanding of what you might be interested in, I think it's good to just read something like that, something kind of fictional, or like research type things based on real events. This could get people inspired. What I have right here, it's this Contest Diaries.
Okay,
It
that's the
might
first
not
time.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess great. And he has three different books on different topics. But what I like about this, it's just stories, kind of fictional stories, based on real experience of a person, right? So it's easy to read. Another thing that I like to read was Sandworm and Zero Day. Also nice to just get that feeling. But then, yeah, just when people come to me asking,
Mm.
what should I do? What should I learn? I would ask, what are you interested in? What's your background? What do you like to do? Do you
Mm.
like to do this? Then it would be, if you're
Okay.
a manager, if you want to, their jersey roles, they're great, and I think very important. And some people might be interested in that path. So yeah, this is why it's difficult. I have the whole bookcase with books on different topics, and cryptography and reverse engineering. But this is not something I can recommend for wider audience, I would say.
I mean, maybe someone who's very interested in that, for them it would be like maybe the book that would change
Yeah.
the, no.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that the book that changed my life as an AppSec engineer was on threat modeling by Adam Shostak. That was a good one. I still
Really?
have it. I use it. I have a lot of bookmarks in it that
Okay.
help me professionally. But that's only one small part of the security, and it's such a wild and wide world. You can do anything. You can switch from one field to another. Just staying within security, because it provides so much opportunity. But I think it's important to be passionate about something. This is why I'm cautious about recommending something without knowing what when
The
the
person is
person
interested
is
in, yeah.
interested and what's their background, because it's important to get that excitement. If you're not excited about this, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, there it's really
It feels
haven't
like a
seen.
drug.
I have stories. Maybe there are from people who had to do stuff, and were happy doing that. So I think it's an important part, but I know it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough. Thank you so much, Alina, for coming on the podcast. That was very great talking to you, and thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experiences of what changed your personal life. So it was super fun, and I'm really excited when it goes.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.